name's Alan, and I perform in Neon Indian.
My name's Dan Deacon, and I perform in Dan Deacon. I think we met in the lobby of a hotel in Iceland.
I think, yeah, totally. It was during Icelandic Airwaves, and somebody had stolen his glasses. If I remember correctly, I walked up to you and was like, "Did you find your glasses?"
I did.
And it was magic ever since then.
I don't know if they were stolen as much as I was drunk. We don't really know each other that well, other than we tend to play a lot of the same festivals.
Totally.
And have a lot
it's usually
of
in the snack room or some situation where I'm like...
He's like, "Where are all the snacks, Dan?" And I'm like, "Oh, still not here, I guess." That joke really failed. I forget where it was, but it was the last festival that we were playing together. And we were like, "Oh, you're doing Moogfest." And we're like, one of us was like, "We should do a jam together."
And here we are.
And here we are. I send Alan a list of all the stuff that I like, and so he can cross off his list, and he does the same.
The only thing I didn't cross off was chamber music, which I think is what we tried to accomplish today.
It's a pretty large collection of music, so we wanted to. But he got The Doors, and I got Neil Young, so I think it kind of worked out a little bit.
Yeah.
He's still a little bitter over it. But.
He's a little bit country.
The next Christmas Chaperone, which is the name of our duo, will be more lyric based and lots of twang. We're doing
but just acapellas.
Yeah.
This is our only electronic piece that we'll ever perform as Christmas Chaperone. It was definitely kind of with the intention of completely improvising it and seeing what would happen.
It was like a musical equivalent of a blind date. You don't really know where the other person's going to go, and you don't want to be too timid, and you also don't want to be too aggressive. That's a tip for dating as well.
I'm waiting for the scene where they interview us separately. I'm like, Dan was a little nervous at first, but he was really reaching out. I was trying out the Animoog for one of the first times. Now at the festival is really my first chance kind of exploring, all of the features on it and stuff. I think I'd only seen a couple of videos before, so I mainly used that, and then just had a couple of Moogfest just with various effects that I had kind of automated with the CP251, which is just kind of sends a whole variety of crazy signals that are totally autonomous and just let you do your thing while it does its thing.
Each rig had a low-pass filter that I was using as an oscillator, and then the freak box, which is like a frequency tracer, and also just like helps shape the waveform a little bit. And then that went into a phaser, into the delay, into the cluster flux. So there were 2 of those, and I had 3 CPs. So I was sort of the drone, and then it sort of just got bubbly. Every pot on the Moogfest also has a jack in the back that represents it for either CV in or CV out or both. So, like Alan said, you can set something and then you can run an LFO into it or another waveform coming out of it or a sample on hold and just let the pedals sort of take control while you just sit back and tweak it.
My favorite thing to do is run a noise generator into just about any of those.
I mean, Moog is definitely like the name that when you're a kid and you're into weird sounds, you hear Moog, and it's just the way it just hits the ear. If you say Moog or Moog, it's sort of like, Moog, what the hell is that? And I think my first diving into Moog was probably the Switched On Box series. You hear those records and you hear such familiar music and such a foreign timbre. And even though it's still based in a tempered scale and
it's meant to emulate certain
it's meant to emulate
brass instruments,
actual instruments. It still has such a weird, crazy sound. And then you hear Devo, which used a lot of the Moog gear, and that's just sort of how I got into it. And then I guess the main thing that made me get sort of obsessed with it was Raymond Scott, the composer in the 50s that worked a lot with building crazy synthesizers. And I believe he was one of the first people to employ Bob and got Bob started. After seeing that and then reading how big of an influence Bob was, it just sort of, I feel like a jerk calling him Bob. I feel like I should be calling him like King Moog. When King Moog entered the realm, all would pray. There'll be like 10 names for music of the 20th century, and Moog will be one of them.
It's very rare that you show up to a festival that has, a lineup that is so incredibly complementary to everything that you like. There's very few experiences where bands can come together and not really kind of feel like they're in this rigid sort of formal environment where they just have to perform and then get out. You know, like I think people try to make time to be here because, you know, they kind of come here to sharpen the axe, so to speak. I mean, I think there's quite a bit to learn, not just from, you know, being at the Sound Lab, but from watching the people who utilize the technology, you know, and I think that, you know, electronic music for that reason is like one of those very rare genres of music where the people, you know, creating the tools have just as much to do with the advancement of the sound as the people utilizing it.
There's a lot of fringe music here that's presented just as, you know, prominently as very mainstream stuff. You know, a lot of festivals don't take risks and they're just like, let's just book the biggest bands with the models and the guns and everything. So it's nice to see.
The models and the guns.
It's just nice to see a festival that's willing to take risks but not compromise the music at all.